The wait is over. Hayao Miyazaki's new film, The Boy and the Heron, has now been released in the US. Just like his previous 5 films, this has been dubbed Miyazaki's last film, but was quickly stripped of that title as soon as it was released. According to Ghibli producer Toshio Suzuki, Miyazaki has come to him with more ideas. I honestly think this man is going to die making films, which is probably what he wants, but to each their own. Something I want to mention real quick is that I got to see this movie twice this past weekend. Both occasions I went to see this movie, it had a decent turnout. In fact, on my second viewing, it was close to a packed theater. I then learned that The Boy and the Heron topped the box office this past weekend, the first time any Miyazaki film has done so in the US. I'm very glad that people came out to see this film. It shows to me that there's still appreciation for these types of movies, and hopefully more of them will be pushed out into cinemas in the future. No doubt that G-Kid's marketing also helped with the success of this film, so props to them as well. Anyways, The Boy and the Heron. What did I think of it? Compared to Miyazaki's other works, this one feels the most intimate to him. I remember seeing back during the film's production that Miyazaki sort of intended to make this movie for his grandson, saying that grandpa isn't going to be around for much longer, and wanted to leave something behind for him. Miyazaki is 82 years old, pushing 83 at the time of recording, so it's no surprise that he's probably contemplating death a lot. It really shows in this film, and a lot of it deals with death and mortality, as it follows Mahito, our main character, dealing with the death of his mother. Miyazaki draws a lot of inspiration that parallels from his own life and implements them into the story, which also adds to the intimacy of the film. But despite the bleak and serious subject matter, it doesn't stop Miyazaki from once again taking us on this wild adventure into an imaginative world. Between Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki, I always thought that Takahata was the more artsy and experimental one. And if you don't know who Isao Takahata is, he was the other big Ghibli director who directed films such as Grave of the Fireflies, Only Yesterday, Pampoko, and also The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. If you've seen any of his films, each of them feels different from the last, as Takahata was always exploring new ways to tell stories. Miyazaki, on the other hand, has a more direct storytelling method and has developed a style that he is known for. Although, with his last few films, it does feel like Miyazaki had begun branching out and produced more abstract feeling films as a result. The Boy and the Heron is his most abstract film, yet still feels very Miyazaki. We still go on a classic adventure into another fantastical world with mysterious characters and learn some sort of life lesson along the way. It just feels like a fever dream this time around. The one Miyazaki movie I can closely compare this to is Spirited Away, but it felt more chaotic. There were a lot of times where I had trouble keeping up with everything as I was trying to make sense of what was going on, and in a way it was kind of fun. I did eventually realize that you don't have to make sense of every single thing. Some elements just simply aren't supposed to make sense and should be enjoyed as is. I will say that after discussing it with others and watching the film a second time around, I felt like I had a better time following the story and could appreciate it more. I did like talking about it with others and trying to break it down, which is something I look for in movies. And this one has a lot of stuff you can break down and analyze for yourself. The music by Joe Hisaishi is also worth noting. When I think of music by Joe Hisaishi, I usually think of grand, catchy orchestral tracks, although he goes in a different direction for this film. The best word to describe this soundtrack is ethereal. A lot of the music sounds ambient, mysterious, and mainly consists of piano for most of the soundtrack. The only other time I've seen Hisaishi take a similar approach was with Isao Takahata's final film, The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. It isn't really my favorite soundtrack by him, but I still enjoyed listening to the music. In a way, the music is quite calming by itself, yet also kind of eerie. The English cast also did a fantastic job with the dub. While everyone is praising Robert Pattinson for his work as the Great Heron, and rightfully so, he stole the show, I want to note Florence Pugh's performance. As I was watching the film, I was trying to match everyone's voice from the cast list that was released a while back, and the only one I couldn't figure out until the end credits was Florence. Perhaps I'm just not that familiar with her voice, but when I saw who she voices, I was amazed by the vocal range she has, as it was a character I was not expecting. I don't want to say who she voices as I think it's somewhat of a surprise, and we'll just leave it at that. Unless you are very familiar with her voice, then I think you'll probably pinpoint her pretty quick, unlike me. My biggest complaint would probably be the ending. I don't really have a problem with how the film ended itself, but rather that it felt a bit abrupt. Although a lot of Miyazaki's works have abrupt endings, so this isn't anything new from him. Others might have more of a problem with it though, especially if you're not that familiar with Miyazaki's works. So should you go see the movie? If you're a fan of Miyazaki or Ghibli, I think this is a must-watch for sure. If this is your first Miyazaki or Ghibli film, I don't think this is the best gateway film unless you go into it with an open mind. Even as a Miyazaki and Ghibli fan, I did have some difficulties digesting everything, but it's a fun ride nonetheless. I'm not sure where this lands on the Ghibli spectrum just yet, but I do think it is up there with some of the more other well-known ones. I can see it going down as this generation spirited away. This might be a hot take, but out of all the animated movies I've seen this year, this one is probably my favorite. I liked it even more than Across the Spider-Verse. Yes, the Spider-Verse is an amazing movie and I can't wait for the third one, but The Boy and the Heron just fits my taste more. It's one of those movies where the more I sit on it, the more I like it. But hey, let's be thankful that this was a pretty decent year for animated films. It honestly does feel like this is Miyazaki's swan song, and I do really think he meant it to be, but alas, he has decided to keep going until death most likely. Ironic considering the subject matter of this film. If he does end up finishing another film after this one, I will be there again to watch it. This man lives to create. Okay, bye.